So, I don't listen to music like most people. While you guys are probably using Spotify or Apple Music, I kick it old school with one of these bad boys. This isn't entirely due to nostalgia, despite what it looks like. I discover music through YouTube and use a special program I found to download the audio. I import it into iTunes and sort it accordingly, adding album art and track information as needed. I started doing this in high school when I had a terrible phone signal in the building and couldn't yet figure out how to access the school Wi-Fi. Back then I used an old 2nd gen iPod Touch we had lying around. But as my retro hobby matured, I acquired a bunch of different models over the years. The one that I've settled on is this 5th generation iPod, aka the iPod Video. I was given this thing by some family friends a few years ago and decided to modify it to make it more usable in the modern day. Recently, however, it broke. It started outputting audio on only one channel. Definitely never seen that one before. I needed to order a new headphone jack ribbon cable. I've been wanting to give this thing a few more upgrades anyways, and I needed to address the center button's inability to click down, so I decided to clue you guys in and make a video about it. Apart from a new headphone jack ribbon, I also ordered a new front shell with a new center button and a larger battery, which had me the most excited. I got all of my parts for this video from Elite Obsolete. He runs a whole online store just for iPod parts. Every possible thing you could ever need for any of these old iPod models is on here somewhere. By the way, I'm not sponsored, I just think what he does is cool as hell, so shout out to him, man. Once my parts arrived, I went about prying the iPod open. As you can see by the custom colors, I've already done a few mods on this thing, so I'm no stranger to having it apart. Oh yes. You can never have too many of these. I've already got one back here from my previous modding attempts. These are great. What else we got in here? We got, ooh. So we've got the headphone jack and hold switch assembly. We've got, ooh, yeah. Look how much bigger this battery is compared to the old one here. I've got it disconnected, and you can just see how much bigger the new battery is. This is what, 3,000 milliamp hours, and this one is, I think, 650. So this should last like weeks without needing a charge, and it should fit pretty perfectly in the case there. So I'm excited about that upgrade. That's gonna be a really nice thing. And this battery is still good. So I'll just keep it in my parts bin. And then last but not least, we have the new front housing. Ho ho ho. And I got it with a new center button as well, since my center button has not clicked in place for months. And it's scratched in the middle. I'll point that out. You can see the scratch in the middle, and it's stuck pushed in, so I have to really push on that to get it to register, and that's not great. I'm sure that's not great for the PCB under there. Ooh, that was scary. Okay, we got him out. He's free. Our boy is free. Oh, is this one the front? Yeah. Okay, so that one flips in the front, but the other ones don't. Great to know. Okay. From there, I wanted to get the new front housing installed. Make sure if you decide to do this, that you have a system for keeping track of the screws. They are the smallest I've ever worked with and would easily be lost if it weren't for this special area on my work mat. After removing said screws and some slight struggling, I could then remove the old front housing and repair and replace the click wheel's center button. Ooh, oh wow, that is fused. Oh my god, that's stuck. I don't know how that got like that. It's not a mystery as to why the center button wasn't clicking properly before I did this. Yeah, that tab in the middle isn't centered anymore. I don't know how important that is to the functionality of the button. Can I move it? Like straight up, I don't know what this is. I don't know if that's a carbon. I don't think that's a carbon contact. I don't think that's how that works. Okay, yeah, that black, I don't even know what that is, sticky thing, is pretty dang important for the functionality of the button, and that's why it wasn't clicking properly. God knows why it moved, but it did. There we go, now it's clicking. Got that realigned in there, that's nice. With that out of the way, it was time to drop in the new front housing. I took out the protective card covering the screen window and snapped it in place. Yep. 6 screws later, and we're absolutely golden. We've done it. Now we can move on to the other half of the unit. The main issue being the headphone jack ribbon assembly. It's only held on by a few screws, and it came out without too much trouble. Yeah. Tape and all. This thing's done. Going in the bin. Replacing it was just as simple. Almost too simple. Alright, so now we got the hold switch and headphone jack, and it even has the little orange sticker behind that to indicate that it's in hold mode. And everything is looking good. Get the plastic surround removed for now. I don't have another one. If I'm being honest, I forgot to order another one. Time for the exciting part. You can put in the new battery. This is the thing I'm most excited about. Other than getting the iPod baseline functional again, which, is pretty great in itself. But it's this guy. The original battery capacity for this model of iPod is 650 milliamp hours. Decent battery life. It'll get you through a whole day of music playback, but I wanted more. I went crazy and got a 3000 milliamp hour battery. That's over 4.5 times larger than the original. I could probably leave the thing playing for almost a week before it would finally die. Perfection. Before I buttoned the iPod back up, I wanted to test if it was actually working. I didn't want to have to immediately tear the thing back open for some dumb preventable reason. Good news. It booted with no problems, and when the headphones were connected, audio was coming through like it was supposed to. With all that, I could finally snap the thing back together. Right? Right? Alright. Right. Alright, this is how it's gonna be. Son of a bitch, man. It wouldn't be one of my projects if there wasn't some bullshit. There's always f***ing something, man. Always f***ing something. I'm done right now. I'm putting it back together. This requires a quick history lesson. Back in the day, these classic iPods came with tiny mechanical hard drives. The 5th generation, the one that I have, came in 30 gig or 60 gig storage capacities. To fit double the storage, the drives in the 60 gig models are thicker with dual platters for more data. This requires the back case to be slightly thicker to accommodate the larger drive. My 5th gen was a 30 gig model, before I flash modded it to 128, and I had kept the slim case design when I replaced the original with this nice blue one here. Despite what the listing for the battery says, you need a thick back case for the new battery to fit properly, at least in my experience. Maybe I'm good at jumping to conclusions and wasting time, but I digress. I begrudgingly put the original battery back in and snapped it back together. So at the very least, I could use this thing again as is. Boom! The iPod works! Now I can go on with my life. Back to the store page I went. Although this time, I wanted to tie up as many loose ends as I could because quite frankly, I don't want to f*** with this thing all the time just to get it back to how it's supposed to be. In addition to the thick back case, I ordered a new screen and a new black dock bezel. The original screen had dead pixels running through the middle of it, and I'd broken the original white dock bezel during my previous modding attempts. With all these issues resolved, I could achieve this iPod's final form. At this point, all I could do was wait, and I did a fair share of it. I ordered the extra parts the day the short went live, and they arrived 21 days later. I understand that EOE consists of like 1, maybe 2 people, and their popularity has exploded due to YouTuber dankpods. Highly encourage you check them out, by the way. But it was still kind of brutal. The parts did come though, and it put me one step closer to this thing's final form. First, I unwrapped the new back case. I went with the same blue color, because I dig the blue and black aesthetic. I needed to transplant the headphone ribbon from the slim case, as well as install the new dock bezel. The headphone jack ribbon was simple, 3 screws and some light fiddling. The dock bezel is a different story. I could not get this thing to line up no matter how I oriented it. I eventually had to look up pictures online to keep me from going crazy. Despite that though, they still didn't line up, and the screws are about as big as a speck of dust, so trying to get this thing into where it's supposed to was an absolute nightmare. I never really succeeded. I had to give up and just let it be janky.
So I've confirmed that it's oriented correctly, but it still absolutely is not lined up properly.
It's as if the bezel wasn't quite wide enough, because one screw hole lines up and the other is 1 to 2 millimeters off. I got it good enough, and it doesn't interfere with the 30-pin cable when it's plugged in anyway, so please, let's move on. It's new used screen time. I say that because it was scratched up out of the box.
Well, it looks like it's already kind of scratched, which, I mean, fair enough. As long as it works, man, I don't care.
I needed to take the front housing back off, which wasn't too bad as I had just done it like 2 weeks prior. I flipped the bail on the LCD ribbon connector and popped the screen right out. Installing the new screen was a bit fiddly. Ribbon cables really do scare the piss out of me sometimes. They are so fragile, and I'm just afraid that I'm going to rip that stuff straight in half. I realigned the center button again, which took longer than it should have, if I'm being honest.
That's it. Got it.
And then I was able to reinstall the front housing. Finally, I was at the point where I could connect the new battery. I gave everything a test once again before closing the iPod back up. The usual sanity check. Everything appeared to be in order.
Here's a real moment of truth here. Will all of this actually click back together? Okay, come on now. Can we play ball?
Let's fucking go. After all this time, we've got this thing back together. Although there's still one thing I'd like to address. While I was waiting for those extra parts to arrive, I was still using this thing every day. This resulted in my new front housing looking like this. I know this is my own fault for repeatedly putting it in and out of my pocket with my phone and wallet, but that doesn't make it suck less. So I decided to try an old trick I saw years ago on DankPods. This is a liquid metal polisher called Brasso. I saw Mr. Dank use this to restore an iPod that he dragged along the road with his motorcycle into something that looked almost new again. He did this as an experiment for the purposes of YouTube content. Honestly, if your iPod looks like that under normal use, you probably shouldn't be allowed to own technology anymore. Just saying. Dank used several grits of sandpaper prior to Brasso, but mine isn't deeply scratched, so I'm gonna skip to the final stage. I took a bit of it and squirted it onto the corner of a towel, then I spread it around on the face of the iPod. I did my best to polish out as much as I could. I used a dry part of the towel to wipe everything clean. And it doesn't look any better. It might even look a little worse. Love that. Fan-fucking-tastic.
It was worth a shot. I'm glad I tried it. There might be some other things I can do to get the front case to look better. I might try getting some fine grit sandpaper and doing all that. I think I'm gonna call it good for now. Maybe I'll do an update short or something if I figure something out.
I'm pretty happy with how the iPod turned out, all things considered. The new battery has already lasted around 5 days with heavy music playback, and it's just now at around 50%, which is amazing. At some point I'll do a deeper dive on my music listening habits and give details on why I prefer the iPod over other options, Right now I've got a few other videos coming down the pipe, so I'll hopefully get those out sooner rather than later. Until then, all I have to say is thanks so much for watching.